What's up, everybody? Welcome to Podcast Now. I'm Alex, and in this video, I want to talk about if E3 2021 will be canceled. So kind of go through where we're heading in this year. I'm not going to get super political about it. I think it'll be a relatively easy answer, easy explanation. But then I want to talk about how we can adjust from that. What will companies do? Will we get kind of a mirror of what we had last year? How that can be improved? Things like that. Okay, so not super political. I'm not going to go into all that, but I do want to talk about if we're going to have an E3 or not this year. As always, make sure you guys are subscribed. Make sure you guys have the bell icon turned on so when all these videos go up. And if you guys want to follow my Twitter account, PodcastNow15 is my Twitter handle. You can look me up on Twitter, or the link for that is in the description below. Would love to have you guys supporting me over there as well. All right, so again, I think it's an easy answer. Will E3 2021 be canceled? Yes, I do think so. So remember, technically as of right now, E3 2021 is happening. When it was canceled last year, they talked about how they're fully planning on doing it this year. Now the issue is we're running out of time. They're running out of time, right? June is just a few months away. I mean, few. I guess that's not the right that's not the right word to use. But I mean, it's coming up. It's coming up. It's E3. I guess from the time you guys are watching this would actually be around 6 months away from now. Now, again, not to go too much into political stuff and not to get too much into certain keywords that YouTube may not like, I just do not think this sadly, because I actually want things like this to exist, okay? Not E3 in particular, I'll talk about that in a second, but like gatherings, right? I want gatherings to exist in the world. I just don't think we're there yet. From a world perspective, I don't think people would do it. I think people would be too scared. And also with the stuff that can prevent the thing that's going on around the world, right? The needle, I don't think everybody would have it by June. And even if they wanted it, even if they didn't want it, whatever, I don't think it would be ready. I don't think everybody would be able to do it. So I would say large thousands and thousands of people of gatherings, I just do not think are going to happen this year. I listen to music. I don't listen to too much music, but some of the bands that I've listened to, I've heard the members of it talk about even what their plan is for 2021. And what it sounds like is as the year goes on, small festivals, small little, not stadiums, but amphitheaters, basically, very small things is something that they can do, but huge arena tours or stadiums or stuff like that, there's no way. Same thing with sports. You're seeing sports, hockey's gonna start. I love hockey. Go Buffalo Sabres, even though they'll be bottom 5 in the league. You're seeing some teams allow fans, right, of 5,000 out of 18,000, so a third or a quarter, right? So we're not there yet. We're not there where we can have, as many people as E3 can hold, which by the way, it can hold quite a bit. And beyond that, so I would say no, and I would say no for that reason. But also beyond that, I've talked about this before. I don't think this is the most, it's not the most positive thing to say, and it's also, I don't think, agreed upon by everybody, but I do just want E3 gone. So while I do like gatherings, and I like people coming together, and I do understand that E3 is good for little guys too. It's not just the big companies, although it is mainly focused on the big companies, but the little people that go there do oftentimes, it helps them. It has them, and we've heard stories even last year when it was canceled, that all of these smaller developers that would go and would make connections, and sometimes they get deals just by going to E3 where otherwise they wouldn't have been able to, right? I do understand that it hurts some people, but in reality, E3 has been on a downward trajectory for years. Yes, attendance is up, but that's only because they've increased the amount of normal gamers that are allowed to go. The actual amount of companies and what is shown at these shows actually has lessened every year, so it's actually getting worse. So I would say in general, you have Jeff Keighley even, right? The good old Jeff Keighley. I do respect the guy a ton. He's not a big fan of E3 whatsoever. He pulled out. He was going to pull out of E3 last year anyway, okay? And so obviously I think he would do that going forward. He does not have, I would say, I listened to, I was part of his Zoom calls leading into the Game Awards. He's not a big fan of E3, and he's not a big fan of going forward with E3, right? He'd rather do his own thing. And that's the thing. So that's where we kind of land on. So if there is no E3, which I don't think there will be, okay, you can mark that down in your Alex prediction book, all right? What happens? Well, honestly, I do think we get very similar to what we had last year. Now, here's the deal. Last year was filled with ups and downs. I mean, in general, I guess the whole year. But in terms of the summertime for announcing games, I will be honest, it wasn't what I expected. I did expect it to be overall bigger, but it did generally satisfy the groundwork for what I thought it would do. You know what I mean? So I may miss things, but generally last year, if I'm going to try and remember as much as I can, we had the Xbox Showcase in May that kicked us off. Then we had PlayStation go in June, okay, when they announced the PS5. We had Ubisoft and EA. I believe both of them were in July at some point. Ubisoft, I know, was kind of earlier, like the week after 4th of July. So we had them go. We had Microsoft go again in August. We had Sony go again in September. We also had the Summer Games Fest, which just wasn't all that spectacular. Okay, we can all be honest there, right? And that went along the entire thing. That was May through, I think, late August that Jeff Keighley did that. Where he did do some stuff. They announced Tony Hawk Pro Skater through Game Fest, right? He did some other stuff as well, kind of more like obscure, like maybe it only fits for like one fan base kind of thing. And then they had Gamescom, which ended the summer. And Gamescom, honestly, I know not everybody was thrilled with it. I know maybe some people didn't like it all that much. I will say, for what it's worth, I actually really enjoyed that Gamescom because, again, while not every game was for everybody, Jeff Keighley, honestly, I think it was better than the Game Awards, where they had just so much stuff. And again, like, some things aren't going to appeal to you, but some things are. And there was just announcement after announcement after announcement. They did a really good job, in my opinion. They did a really, really good job. So what do they do this year? I think they do the same thing. Now, a couple things that you hope for is this. Number one, that companies that didn't participate do. I guess I also forgot DC Fandom, or Warner Bros. Technically, right? DC Fandom, I think, was August 22nd. They announced Gotham Knights. They announced Suicide Squad Kill the Justice League. Then they announced Hogwarts Legacy in September through the PlayStation event. All right. So if you think about it, from May to September of last year, it was a lot. It actually was. They did announce quite a bit of stuff. It wasn't the same magnitude as what E3 is, and honestly, that's mainly because E3 is like a 3-day conference event, and then you have you have media and gamers able to like play things on the show floor, but it's like 3 days of conferences. And by the way, I'm forgetting Nintendo. I think Nintendo did 1 or 2 different things in the summer as well. But like you have. Like, that's why. It's because you put everything so close together. Game Fest, Summer Game Fest really probably is a good phrase for what happened because it wasn't all at one time. You know what I mean? If we put all the announcements that happened from May to September all together in like a 4-day period, it would have been a ton. It would have been a lot. And that's normally what we get. Now, I guess we also technically get Gamescom, but Gamescom is iffy. Sometimes we get some big stuff there, sometimes we don't. So hopefully what happens this year is companies learn from last year. They learn, all right, like, I'm not demanding everybody goes, like everybody has to announce stuff, because at the end of the day, that is actually how E3 started to suffer, where it's like, all right, Bethesda, I don't know what the heck happened, where it's like, did they have a contract where they had to do like a 5-year thing at E3? Because remember, the first year they did E3, I think they announced Fallout 4. That was massive, and that, I think, was the reason why they wanted to be at E3 that year, because they never did a conference before that. But then, like, pretty much every year after that Bethesda was at E3, it was pathetic. They were, I would argue that they were routinely the worst showing of any company that was there, like every single year but the first year. Okay, maybe that's bold, maybe that's wrong, maybe you guys don't agree, but the general point is, and so, because Sony has admitted this, Nintendo admitted it, right? Because they pulled out, Sony was pulling out, all that stuff. Like, they don't need E3. E3 is for, the tech magazines and these business, like news stations that don't really talk about games, and all of a sudden now they talk about it. It's more of showing, like, I don't know, people with a lot of money around the world what you're working on, rather than talking directly to the gamers. I think that's actually what Sean Layden has said in the past, right? That's the feel. That's literally what E3 is. It's more of a tech show rather than talking to gamers. And that's why, I think E3 should be disbanded, kind of because it's going down that path. But I don't want people going basically when they have nothing to say. So obviously there needs to be announcements. But the thing is, a lot of people were silent. A lot of developers and publishers were silent in 2020 simply because of the stuff that's happened. Maybe it pushed their stuff. Maybe they weren't able to announce the stuff that they were going to announce. I think 2021, under the right circumstances, can be so much bigger. Not necessarily for game releases. In fact, I think we'll have less big game releases this year than we had last year, probably by a lot. But this could be the year that we get a lot of announcements for game games in 2022, games in 2023. I mean, we do have off years for games. Some years are really, really amazing. 2011, right, was one of the greatest years for any, for gaming in general. But some years are weaker and some years are better. So I think this year will be a weaker year for quantity, for the amount of games that are coming out, but I do think we're going to get a lot of announcements. So I hope that we get a lot of that in the summer. Again, like more big guns kind of showing themselves, right? And I think they can really knock it out of the park. I would say, again, like hindsight, like looking back, it was a pretty good May to September. It was boring at times. We especially with Games Fest, I think we were expecting more, and Jeff Keighley hyped us up for more than he delivered. When you look at it, we did get quite a lot of announcements. It wasn't from everybody, and that's actually what should make people excited, right? Is that there's actually more that can happen. All the companies that went that past time, they can go again, and a lot of companies skipped out on it that can also go, and I think that would be a really amazing thing. I'm sure Jeff Keighley is working on a Games Fest 2.0. I'm sure there's state of plays for Sony and Microsoft and Nintendo. I'm sure all of that's in the works. Ubisoft Forward events actually are kind of cool. They're not the greatest things in the world, but they are kind of neat just to have an hour where we see upcoming Ubisoft stuff. So I'm sure we'll see that continue into 2021. I think even if we don't have an E3, I mean, honestly, I won't be upset one bit if we don't have an E3 this year. So let me know, guys, in the comments below. Again, what do you think? Let me know. As always, make sure you guys are subscribed, bell icon turned on, so you know all these videos go up. Again, if you want to follow our Twitter, Podcast Now 15 is my Twitter account. You can look me up on Twitter, or the link for that is in the description below. Thank you guys so much for watching. I really do appreciate it. I hope to see you all on the next video.